I want to start with the filibuster. It is dead on arrival. The changes that Joe Biden proposed to the filibuster is dead on arrival because of Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. Also because of all the Republicans. But I'm sorry, our job, if you consider yourself to be not a Republican, I don't care if you're a full-fledged Democratic Party member in good standing. If you are a person who rejects the absurdity of the Republican Party, then you should be upset at Democratic politicians who refuse to do the bidding and to do the work of the American people. I mean, we can't even get them to support Joe Biden's plan, the Build Back Better plan. They are Democrats who are intentionally sabotaging the plans of the president of the United States. More importantly, they're sabotaging the well-being of the Democratic experiment as a whole. I want to take a listen to this first clip. As the Senate debated making the change, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell promised to make the Senate more inconvenient than anything in living memory if Democrats alter filibuster rules to pass voting rights. He cited infrastructure and hate crimes legislation as bipartisan achievements that would be threatened. Let's take a listen to Turtle McTurtle.
So what does that mean?
If my colleague tries to break the Senate to silence those millions of Americans, we will make their voices heard in this chamber in ways that are more inconvenient for the majority and this White House than what anybody has seen in living memory. Last year, the Senate passed major bipartisan legislation on infrastructure, on hate crimes, on government funding, on competing with China. Last year, senators helped speed through non-controversial nominations. So what would a post-nuclear Senate look like? I assure you it would not be more efficient or more productive. I personally guarantee it.
I personally guarantee that in the next 4 years, our next goal would be to get... Come on, are we really going to sit here and care what this man says when he has been the leading architect in the decline of this empire? Senate Majority Leader or Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has played the most critical role in the demise of this Democratic experiment. He's the one that made sure that we had a conservative majority on the bench of the Supreme Court. Now, I am 38 hot with the Democratic Party for not fighting and going nuclear all the way back with Merrick Garland as a Supreme Court pick, because now here we are. We have Brett Kavanaugh and what's the other guy? It wasn't just Brett Kavanaugh. It was the other guy at the time. It'll come back to me momentarily. But the point is Mitch McConnell, while he's trying to make it seem as though he can make it worse than it already is, it is already bad. There's no threat that Mitch McConnell can make that should make anyone more fearful of what we currently have. And let me say that again. What is happening in this country right now is sufficient enough for us to never be concerned about what the chief architect of this madness has to say, Mitch McConnell. Anyway, it's not just Mitch McConnell, however. Mitch McConnell's on one side of the Republican Party trying to mastermind his way into a theocratic, Christo-fascist regime. But you also have Donald Trump and his allies. His loyalists are forming an alliance in a bid to take over the election process in key states. Now, we know this is happening here in the state of Georgia. We know that in the Secretary of State position, Donald Trump is trying to run one of his loyalists. Well, it's not only in the state of Georgia, all around the country, they are attempting to take over the key election functions of states that are critical to winning in 2024. Let's take a listen to this. A little bit more information on this is that in key states, they have a coalition of America First Secretary of State candidates. This is what's happening across the country. There's a list of America First Secretary of State candidates. And this is, of course, disclosed by Jim Marchin, who is running for Secretary of State in Nevada. I mean, we have an all-out full court press against democracy, not only by the Trump faction of the Republican Party, but by the establishment portion of the Republican Party. And to add insult to injury, The Democrats that we did everything that we possibly could to get in power. The Democrats that I personally helped and took it on the chin in order to make sure that we won the state of Georgia. We personally got on the ground and helped Ossoff and Warnock win the state of Georgia and Biden win the state of Georgia in the general election. And yet and still, we can't get the people who have the power from the people to stand up for us because, oh, well, there's nothing we could possibly do about Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin to get rid of the filibuster to protect voting rights. I'm sorry. Before I play this clip of Kyrsten Sinema, I got to ask the Democratic Party a question. How the hell do you expect black people to come in and save you every 2 to 4 years when you don't even protect the black people's right to vote? Brown people's right to vote, marginalized communities' right to vote. There's nothing that we can do. So when Democrats lose in 2022 and 2024, it won't be because the people aren't trying to do our job. It's because Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin are blocking everybody else from doing theirs. Let's listen to Kyrsten Sinema as she discusses how she is going to stand on the side of democracy and not do a damn thing to help us protect our right to vote. Let's run that clip.
These bills help treat the symptoms of the disease, but they do not fully address the disease itself. And while I continue to support these bills, I will not support separate actions that worsen the underlying disease of division infecting our country. The debate over the Senate's 60-vote threshold shines a light on our broader challenges. There's no need for me to restate my long-standing support for the 60-vote threshold to pass legislation. And there's no need for me to restate its role protecting our country from wild reversals in federal policy.
Sounds good. Sounds so convincing. One of the things you have to understand about a Karen is that they have the ability to feign sincerity. That's the key thing that you have to look for in a Karen whenever you're under attack. America's under attack by a Karen, a sub-mediocre Karen by that measure. They have the ability to put on a tone and an air of sincerity, like, I don't have to repeat again that it's a 60-vote threshold for me. It wasn't a 60-vote threshold for you back in 2010, Kyrsten Sinema. Here she is advocating for the use of reconciliation in the Senate before she was a senator. Run the clip.
So what does that mean? Well, in the Senate, we no longer have 60 votes. Some would argue that we never had 60 because one of those was Joseph Lieberman. But that's whatever. And Nelson too, but really Lieberman. So now there's, I think as the president so eloquently said on Wednesday, there's none of this pressure, this false pressure to get to 60. So what that means is that the Democrats can stop kowtowing to Joe Lieberman and instead seek other avenues to move forward with health reform. And so it's likely that the Senate will move forward with a process called reconciliation, which takes only 51 votes. And by the way, is not unusual. You may recall that before the Democrats took the Senate in 2008, that the Republicans controlled the Senate for quite some time. In fact, since around 1994, they never had 60 votes, and they managed to do a lot of really bad things during that time. So the reconciliation process is still quite available, and we will use it for good rather than for evil.
She's so funny. She's so witty. She's so well informed. She's so completely and totally aware of the fact that she's full of shit as it pertains to the American people and the right to vote and the filibuster being a false barrier to accomplishing that right and protecting that right. Kyrsten Sinema knows exactly what she's doing. She said everything that she needed to say to get the support of progressives in Arizona to get her elected. And as soon as she got there, well, now, if you look at her, I do believe she's taken money from Republican donors. We know that for a fact for Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin has a regular call with Republican billionaires, a particular Republican billionaire, every single week to get an encouraging word to say, keep up the good work. Google it. Joe Manchin is serving the Republican Party. Kyrsten Sinema is serving the Republican Party, and they are convenient foils for Democrats who really don't want to do anything. I'm sorry. You can whip 2 votes into shape, Joe Biden. That's nothing for the president of the United States. Donald Trump whipped every single Republican into shape when he wanted to get his policy agenda accomplished. And the only thing I've heard from Joe Biden as it pertains to Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin is, I don't know if we're going to be able to overcome it, guys. Meanwhile, the fascists on the right are gathering up everything they possibly can in order to overthrow this democracy. We can't win when we have a belligerent cabal of Christo-fascists on one side of the equation, willing to break every part of this democracy in order to accomplish their agenda. And then on the other side of the equation, you have Karen and you have Joe Biden, who's like, I can't possibly whip Joe Manchin into shape and Kyrsten Sinema into shape. Well, here's a collection of all the rest of the Democrats, including Raphael Warnock, President Biden, and Steny Hoyer, or rather House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer, discussing the filibuster. Let's take a listen in.
So we need to get rid of the filibuster. The filibuster was never contemplated by the founders. The founders absolutely believed that the Senate, like the House, would operate by majority rules. That's the basis of our democracy, the majority rules. You protect the minority against abuse by the majority, but you don't protect the minority to the extent that they take over, that they control, that the minority is in control, not the majority. That's not democracy.
The state of Georgia is ground zero for these voter suppression bills that we're seeing emerge all across the country. This is a defining moral moment. It is the most important thing we can do this Congress.
You all ask questions about complicated subjects like, can you get this done? I hope we can get this done. The honest to God answer is, I don't know whether we can get this done. One thing for certain, like every other major civil rights bill that came along, if we missed the first time, we could come back and try it a second time. We missed this time. And the state legislative bodies continue to change the law, not as to who can vote, but who gets to count the vote. Count the vote. Count the vote. It's about election subversion, not just whether or not people get to vote. Who counts the vote? That's what this is about. That's what makes this so different than anything else we've ever done. I don't know that we can get it done, but I know one thing. As long as I have a breath in me, as long as I'm in the White House, as long as I'm engaged at all, I'm going to be fighting to change the way these legislatures have moving. Thank you.